Welcome back into Twin Cities Live. You know, most of us have a general idea about depression and what it looks like and what it feels like. However, it is important to know that depression can look and feel differently to different people.
There are actually many faces of depression, and Dr. Karin Ryan with Nystrom Associates is here now with more. This is probably the most commonly used term when it comes to mental health is depression. It's the most commonly depicted in movies and TV shows, and I think it's generally depicted in one way. So what do we think about when it comes to depression, and what is the actual definition?
Yeah. The actual definition of depression is that it's a mood disorder that is characterized by persistent sadness and lack of interest in activities. And what we tend to think about are the fatigue, the feeling like we're kind of shut down, like we're heavy, like things are a burden, like it's hard to do things, tearfulness, appearing really down and sad. So that's what we typically think of when we think of depression.
And I think like pharmaceutical ads show just one kind too. You know?
With
so
like the face is sad, they have no
Yeah.
energy, the mask. Yeah, exactly. That's what they show as kind of like the one way we think about depression.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that causes of depression can be so widespread in such a spectrum, which is probably why it's maybe difficult to understand if you are actually suffering from depression or something else.
Yeah, Ben, a lot of people think that depression has to be caused by a specific event, and it certainly can be, right? There can be a trigger, so there can be a loss, or there can be a divorce, there can be a change in job status, there can be trauma, and that can be kind of the precipice for depression. But depression can also come from hormonal, medication, genetic things, so sometimes people feel like there's nothing wrong, why am I feeling down? And that's because depression doesn't always just have a cause. Right, so that's a really helpful piece to know as well, because some people feel like I don't have any reason to feel sad or to feel down, I can't be depressed, but you absolutely can be.
Okay, so other than being sad and tired, what are other ways that depression, the symptoms that it sort of exhibits itself?
Yeah, it can really be presents as agitation, irritability, annoyance, frustration kind of with the world. There can be outbursts.
So you can be
agitated.
like, you're a jerk, but it's actually that you're really depressed.
Exactly, exactly. You know, you can especially see this with like seasonal patterns, right? Like get a little irritable, especially towards the end of winter. So we can see agitation. We can see trouble concentrating. So it might be you're trying to read a book and you feel like I've just read this page and I have no idea what just happened, or you're losing track in conversations, or your memory isn't as sharp. Excuse me. There can be vague medical kind of complaints. So headaches, backaches, constipation, nausea. Those can be signs. Increased drug or alcohol use. We can see that as a pattern when somebody's depressed. We can also see sleep issues. So we oftentimes think about trouble getting out of bed or sleeping too much, and that absolutely can be a symptom of depression. But it can also be hard to fall asleep. You can be laying there, feel exhausted, but also feel restless, or wake up early in the morning and not be able to go back to sleep, but not feel rested either.
Man.
So you say persistence earlier on.
Yeah.
So again, I know that there's probably a spectrum of different causes, and it comes out and manifests itself in different ways for different people, but is there a generic time frame where we say like, okay, this has gone on too long. This is not just being moody. This is not maybe a certain situation for like a week. The persistence, what is the time frame to know if you're actually suffering from depression?
I think of the 2 to 4 weeks, right? If you really feel like you can't shake it and you're really feeling down, and a key piece of like, it'll really start to impact your daily living. So what you're able to do during the day, whether that's work, whether that's school, whether that's interpersonal, whether that's like your kind of daily activities like showering, hygiene, eating, because those are other signs too. Sometimes they lose their appetite, sometimes their appetite increases. And so I think the key piece is like anytime you feel like you could use support, do it, because we know only like 55 to 60% of people seek support.
Right.
And so like don't wait too long.
So I would assume if there's any sort of suicidal thought, it's immediate, like, holy moly, we gotta take action.
And sometimes we don't even know, like, what does that mean? What does that sound like? And so it can be like, I just wish I wouldn't wake up, or I'm so tired of living, I just don't want to be here anymore, or I wish I would just disappear. Those are some of the first things that we have as suicidal kind of thoughts before we start thinking about plans and what we would do. But those like not wanting to be here, feeling like life is too hard and it's too much, those are those first suicidal signs.
Now, let's contrast that, because Elizabeth brought up a really good point when we were talking about this. Now, we're talking about maybe some obvious facial signs, body movements, and just body language of being like, oh, that person looks sad, or that person maybe a little depressed or a little down. But there are some people that put on a smile, but still suffer from depression. So that is something that's kind of a coping, a masking thing that people do as well.
It absolutely is, right? One of the faces of depression is like smiling depression, where that person exhibits like energy and positivity and has a positive outlook and like a smile on their face and is easygoing and agreeable. The warning signs in there, maybe they avoid talking about anything serious, or they're always fine, or things that are kind of challenging and stressful, they don't show that. But you're right that sometimes people are really struggling internally and going through turmoil and feeling really down, but will mask it and pretend that everything's just fine.
Okay, before we go, I want to make sure that we can get to what helps.
Yeah.
What do you recommend? Of course, therapy is a big
100%.
piece of that, but what do you want people to do?
Yep, therapy, medications are huge. There's a form of treatment called TMS, transmagnetic stimulation, which is an FDA approved, where it's a magnetic pulse that is sent directly to like the part of your brain that is not activated enough from depression, that piece when there's that genetic component or that biological component. Just knowing there are lots of options. So if you feel like you've tried everything, you haven't, right? And if you haven't tried anything, please try, because you are not alone if you're experiencing depression.
And it's not a one-size-fits-all.
It
When
is
you're
not.
working
Yes.
with a
Correct.
therapist, it's not like, okay, we just put everybody on drugs and
Yeah.
you're on it for the rest of
Yes.
your time. It's,
Yep.
it's not like that.
And we get that therapist looks different. That depression looks differently. So when you come into that therapist, they're gonna work with you and get it on what you're experiencing, not trying to make it fit you.
And it's probably okay for the patient to not know exactly what the trigger is.
Yes.
You know, I'm sure they just come in like, I don't really know what is going
Yeah.
on. I just know I don't feel right.
100%. And people come in and they don't even know if it's depression, if it's anxiety, what it is. Like, that's our job. We will help you
Yeah.
with that. Like, if you feel off, come in and we will help you figure it
Oh,
out.
that's
Yeah.
so good,
Good
Dr.
stuff.
Ryan. Thank
Yeah,
you so
my
much.
pleasure. Thank
Great
you.
to see you. So
Good to see
Nystrom Associates provides care in the fields of psychiatry, psychology, family therapy, and more. They have 20 locations in the Twin Cities. Easy to just zip to one. We're going to post their contact information on twincitieslive.com.
Okay, here's something cool that I didn't even know about until now. So if you struggle with depression, help is available. You can call or text 988 at any time to chat with a counselor. They offer support and resources 24/7, 7 days a week. That is amazing. We'll be right back.